Hare Krishna. Namaste to all viewers. Welcome back to Avahan. Let's pick up where we left off last episode and continue to answer some more questions about what questions the general public and a lot of the youth might have about the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to answer two questions in this episode. Let's dive right in. Okay, so the first question that we will talk about today is the youth are very restless, they're always anxious all the time. So, why does this happen, and is there any solution in the Bhagavad Gita? Is what I'm going to try and discuss right now. So, first off, let's try to identify the problem. Uh, we know it's so the thing that happens is we all wake up every day, we look at the newspaper, and the first thing that we tend to read are headlines of we see hate crimes happening all around the world. We see scams, we see terrible statements by politicians, and the youth of today has more access to all of this. Like the previous generation didn't have access to internet, they didn't have PCs the way we do, which is why we get to see the world a lot. How can I put it? Like we see more of the world just sitting in our houses looking at our screens than our ancestors did by traveling around. Now, while that may seem like a good thing, yes, of course, we're getting a lot of exposure to things. The downside is you get to see like the uh I won't call it bad. Let's just say the darker sides of the world. So you get to see all the evil and the corruption going on, and yeah, being an individual, that does tend to cause a problem because you as an individual feel like there's nothing you can do about it. Like when I sit here, when I read, like let's say I open the paper, I read about a hate crime or I read about somebody who got robbed. I feel bad because I can't do anything about it. I'm just one single individual, and you can't really do anything. Like let's say there's a politician who's uh, even your neighborhood politician, let's say he's been caught in a scam. What are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about it. And the youth of today know that better than anyone, and that's why I feel we there's this sense of powerlessness, there's this anxiety going around, there's a lot of anguish just because you feel like you can't do anything. You feel like there's no purpose in your life. And now coming to the Bhagavad Gita, that's exactly what we try to answer. Like it's not true that nobody has a purpose. Of course, we all have a purpose. So let me quote from Bhagavad Gita. So this is taken from chapter 2, verse 6. So this is Arjuna speaking. Arjuna says, "When the battle begins, how can I shoot through those who deserve my reverence? It would be better to live my life as a pauper, begging for food, than to kill these honored teachers. We do not know which is worse, winning this battle or losing it, since if we kill these men, we will not wish to remain alive. Tell me where my duty lies, which path I should take." So, what is happening here is our hero, who's Arjuna, is standing in the battlefield, and opposite to him are his teachers, his brothers, his family, his friends, and he doesn't want to kill them because he loves them. But at the same time, he cannot abandon the battlefield because that is going to mark him a traitor, and that is the worst insult that can happen to a Kshatriya. So, what Arjuna is feeling right now is similar to what we feel. He feels powerless. He feels like he can't do anything at that point. He feels like all he can do is just stand on the battlefield and do nothing, which is why Krishna steps in. Lord Krishna is there. He is the charioteer for Arjuna, and he's also Arjuna's friend. So here he treats Arjuna not only as a student but also as his friend. So Krishna's response to that is very simple. He only says that we shouldn't run away. We need to confront what battles we see in the world and the battle within our own minds. So when I say battle in the world, I don't mean you go try to fight evil on all on your own. It's not possible. It's not practical to do it. But what you can do is stop the little things that you see happening. Like if you see one of your friends doing something that you know is wrong, you need to talk to them. You need to call them out. You can't let them go just because they're your friends. You can't let them go because you love them, like how Arjuna had a problem here. Even though he knew the Kauravas were wrong, he knew that what they did was wrong, he still couldn't uh, find the courage to kill them, because they were his brothers after all. And no matter what, like in the end of the day, family is above everything. There's a saying in English which says blood runs thicker than water, which basically means that your ties, your bonds with your family are the strongest relationship you will ever have with anyone. So obviously, when Arjuna was, who was a great warrior, was faced with such difficulties, it's only natural that we'd have the same problems in our life too. And what Krishna says there is, we must, so this is in regard to our duties. What Lord Krishna says is we must show up, stand up, and speak the truth. There's no honor in sitting quietly back and hoping things will get better, which is true. You want things to change, you need to take the initiative. You can't just sit back and say, oh, I hope everything's going to become better one fine day. Like for example, we in India, we tend to complain a lot about corruption. And the same people who talk about corruption, when they get caught by a traffic police officer, end up bribing the officer. So isn't that hypocrisy? You can't not take the step. You got caught for doing something, just own up to it, pay the fine. Don't bribe the officer and then go talk about corruption later, because you are contributing to the problem. You're not you're just sitting back, you're hoping that the system will change itself. The system will not change itself. You need to do your part to change it. So another thing that Arjuna asks in the Bhagavad Gita is, how do we know when it is best to act or when it's best to surrender? When am I forcing my will on an unyielding situation? So he's talking about his family here. How can it be right to kill these people? How can this war be just? How can I lead people I love to their death? Okay, I just cut this part. I'm sorry. Uh, the quote here is taken from Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, the first and second verse combined. So this is Arjuna speaking now. If you think that understanding is superior to action, Krishna, why do you keep on urging me to engage in this savage act? With words that seem inconsistent, your teaching has bewildered my mind. Tell me, what must I do to arrive at the highest good? So, like what Krishna, what I'm sorry, what Arjuna is talking about here is, so Lord Krishna advises you to use your discretion too. Like you cannot even so even crimes, you have levels of crimes. There are some that are small that can be let go. There are some that are bad crimes which have to be punished, and there are some which are not really crimes, depending on what perspective you look at. So here what Arjuna is trying to say is, Krishna has taught him that understanding is superior to action, which means before you get into an argument, before you get into a fight, you need to take a look at both perspectives. You need to understand what's happening. So he asked Krishna, okay, after you tell me that understanding is so important, why are you still telling me to engage in this war? Why are you telling me to kill my family? Is that not wrong? Which makes sense when you think about it. So let's see what Krishna has to respond. Krishna's response boils down to this. You have a part to play in the world. Show up, do your work, and let go of the results. No effort is ever wasted. Time moves forward, not back. Be your best self, breathe and meditate, but don't run away. Which is which is true. Like, if as long as we focus on doing what our duty is, doing the tasks assigned to us, doing what our moral responsibilities are, just like I mentioned before, you don't do these things expecting results. Like, just because I don't bribe one officer, I can't expect that corruption will go away overnight. That's not the reason you do it. The reason you do it is just for moral satisfaction. The reason you do it is so that you know that you did something right, that you didn't contribute to the problem. Now, this verse is from chapter 18. It's verse number 15 from chapter 18. An embodied being can never relinquish actions completely. To relinquish the results of actions is all that can be required, which is exactly uh, what I told you right now. You can't relinquish actions. You cannot. I'm, I mean, when you break down your entire day, it's just a series of actions, right? Like, what you do in an entire day is just your actions. Now, the only change that you can really make to your life is to not expect results from those actions. You just do them because you have to do it, because it's your duty. That's all it is. And so, another important point stressed in the Gita multiple times is the importance of yoga. So, let me quote a verse from the yoga. This is from the Gita. This is from chapter 5, verse 12, where Lord Krishna says, "The resolute in yoga surrender results and gain perfect peace. The irresolute, attached to results, are bound to everything they do." So again, this is about not wanting results. And why do we engage in yoga? When okay, let's talk about other forms of fitness first, so that I can bring my point back to this. When you train, let's say when you go for running, or if you play a sport, you're training with a goal in mind. You're trying to get better at something. If you run, you're trying to set a new personal best. If you're playing, let's say, cricket or football, you're trying to get better, right, with each match that you play. Or even if you go to the gym, if you start bodybuilding, what's your goal? You don't go to the gym for no reason. You go to the gym because you want to build a body. Yoga does not work like that. The people who get into yoga are the ones who just want peace within themselves. You don't go to yoga looking for results. You do it because, again, it's a my personal opinion, I would say it's a responsibility. Like, just how we take responsibility to, let's say, finish our education, to earn money, to take care of our lives. All these are physical aspects, they're material aspects. What we don't look at is taking care of our own self. By self, I mean not just mentally, but spiritually also. And and that's what yoga helps you with. And coming back to the question that was asked at the start of the topic, that what can the youth do to not feel restless? I believe that yoga, meditation are things that can help a lot. Because I personally, after starting yoga and meditating, I have really seen a change. Like, it's made me, it's not a magical change. It's not uh, some kind of fix all kind of solution. You don't expect that. What all you get is a sense of peace, and that peace is enough to carry you a long way forward. I hope. So the next question that we have is, there is a lot of depression that is also affecting youngsters, and is there any cure for this in the Bhagavad Gita? Now, when we talk about depression, it's a very complicated process. There are a lot of factors which come into play, and yes, medication is something that is required. And yes, when you do look at the statistics, the youth of today are suffering more from, I wouldn't just say depression, but also other mental illnesses. And which is why you have a lot of awareness about these topics also in our current modern day. Now, why is this happening? Now, as I spoke in the previous question, there's a lot more exposure, and exposure is like a double-edged sword. Like there is good, but there are harmful side effects of it also, because the more you know about things, the more disheartened you get. Like, for example, uh, okay, let's take the example. A lot of you might have seen Christopher Nolan's movie, The Dark Knight. And there, of course, Batman is the good guy, but then you have Joker, who's clearly the bad guy. But still, a lot of people liked the Joker. They thought, okay, he's so quirky, he's so smart, he's cool, and all that. But as time passed, as you got more and more exposure to things, you know the new Joker movie that released, and that gives you a different perspective. Now that is that takes into account all this mental health issues and everything. So it's seen from a perspective with more knowledge about the Joker. Like in Dark Knight, when you talk about it, you're only looking at it from Batman's point of view. So what I'm trying to get at here is mental health is it's a complicated topic. It's not something that anyone can like just say that there's a solution for it. But what you will find in the Gita is, it's not, I won't say, I will not promise you that you will find a solution, but what I will promise you is that it'll put you on the path to find the solution. Because in the end, we need to look out for ourselves. We need something, we need to go out and get it. So here, you're depressed, you need to know how to, like, you're the one who's responsible for getting the help that you need, whether it may be through therapy or through medicines or through the Gita. So now, why am I talking about the Bhagavad Gita here? Is because if you break down a lot of Lord Krishna's teachings, like the main thing that is the repetitive that is the main theme of the Gita, I would say, is to have faith, right? Like, Krishna here in the Gita is not only Arjuna's friend, but he's also Arjuna's teacher. And he's constantly asking Arjuna to have faith in him, even when he says, go fight your brothers, go fight your uncle. Krishna is asking him to have faith. He's saying, Krishna very clearly tells Arjuna that I would never tell something that is bad for you. And here it's, so when we read the Gita, it's, Krishna is not just talking to Arjuna, Krishna is talking to all of us, in a sense that we can all place ourselves in Arjuna's feet. Of course, we have never stood in a battlefield, we have never had to kill our own family, but all of us have faced some struggles which have been just as monumental for us. And the same thoughts of hopelessness have gone through our minds, the same thoughts of sadness, of anguish. So that's what the Gita teaches you, to how you can overcome it, how so the reasons for this depression can be multiple. Like, so, like, some people, it might be because of a failed relationship, it might be because of some childhood trauma. There's no way to pinpoint anything, right? Like, even if you go to a therapist, it's not, you're not going to get better in a day, not in a week, not in a month. It takes time, it's a process. And the main part of that process is to find out where the problem is, right? And how do you find problems? Like, when you talk to a counselor, when you talk to a therapist, what do? You ask questions and you receive answers, right? That's what you do. And that is what the Gita is. It's a series of questions that Arjuna asks Krishna, and Krishna answers for Arjuna. Now, I'm not saying you will instantly get better after reading it, but what I am saying is it's very likely that some of the questions in your head are there in the book, and you might just find exactly what you need. Like, at least, like, you might have a sense of, let's say, relief once, okay, when you read about it, when you know that, okay, it's not just in your head, that even somebody, like lot of others also have these thoughts, and you'll find an answer to those thoughts. And that's why the Bhagavad Gita is not just a religious scripture. It, for me personally, I feel like it's a guide to help you live your life better. It helps you find that inner peace, inner focus that you need, which will eventually, of course, this inner peace, this inner focus that you can find is going to help you in a long way. No matter, it doesn't matter what you're looking for. One of those questions that you have in your head is definitely answered in the Gita. I can promise you that much. I hope this explanation answered the question. Thank you.